Alright, so welcome back. So in a previous tutorial we saw, still on the Rust roadmap, we saw how to work with the basics of Rust from here, right? And then now let's move on from here to something practical, right? So we're going to web development for now, and then we'll try and see how to do some cryptography with web development. So let's pick a web framework. So you can pick any of them and then master them, but I think I'll pick Actix-Web, right? So let's check it out. Let's see. The most popular ones that we know is Rust web frameworks comparison. So let's pick something to learn that is going to be beneficial, right? Because yeah, as you can see from here, we have, let's close all the ones that we have. We have Rocket, we have WAP, we have Actix or Actec, we have Hue, we have Axiom, right? But anytime you want to learn a programming language, there are two things you have to know. Pick the one that is very used, right? That has so many terms that is used in the industry by many people, and pick the other one that is also very useful but is minimal. So you pick the micro web framework and then pick the full stack web framework, right? So in case you're coming from Python, you would have picked Django and then let's say something like Fast API, or Django and then Flask, right? So by doing that, you have an upper hand. So in the same way, we will be picking something that is very useful, used everywhere, that is very old, has so many things that are used by many companies, as well as one that is simple to learn. So let's see. So if I come back here, we have this option here. So we have different front-end frameworks we have. So let's not pick these ones. So in case later you want to learn, you will pick Diox because it has this amount of downloads, and then Leptos, right? So that means that a lot of people are using, and you have to check these ones. But we want the backend, right? So let's go back to the server side, high level server side. So we have Actix-Web, which as you can see, it has 225 here. And then we have the current version. It is async, HTTPS, HTTP, so that means it's useful to learn. And then if you check the stars, it's 22K, which is more. Axiom is 20K, which you can also learn, and this is the amount. And then we also have like Rocket, right? So in case you want to learn, you can pick Actix-Web, Axiom, or Rocket, right? And then you check these on. These are also okay, but you see the stars are not that much. So you have to know one that a lot of people like. If a lot of people like it, that means that it is used by many companies, and then you can easily have help in case you need something. And then in case you want to use it for practical application to get a job, you can also get a work there. So I'll be picking this one for now, and then later on we'll pick on Axiom and then Rocket with time, right? So let's see Actix-Web. So that's what you're picking. So Actix-Web is a powerful, pragmatic, extremely fast web framework for Rust. So that's what we're doing. And let's see, getting started. So how do we start with? Give us an example. Let's go with getting started. So let's start with this. So this is the current version. This is the dependency we are working on. And then you can see the syntax, which makes it not very bad. So now let's see how to build this thing from scratch. So what we are doing is, this is our old application, and then we are picking Actix-Web, right? Actix or Active or Actix, yeah. So let's start. So I'll go back again to our workspace here. We had our basics here, and now let's create one for the web apps. So mkdir, and I'll call it as web apps, right? And then I'll move into web apps. So this is where we'll be running all the apps. And then I'll go with cargo new, and I'll give it my first simple application. So let's give it a simple name. I'll call it as my Cypher app, right? And I'll move into Cypher app. If I see it, we have nothing there. So let's get out of here, and then let's open from here with VS Code. So this is it, right? So initially we had this one that we learned, which is here. So let me close this, and then now we have this one here. So what I'll do is that I'll just close the entire stuff and code here, so that we have it together, so that we can write some notes. So this is the old one, and now we are learning about web apps. And then the web app we are picking Actix-Web, right? And then let's build our first web app, which is going to be my Cypher app. We are building something very simple, something very useful. Okay, so I'll go back here, and this is the location that we have. We have my main.rs, and inside here we have my simple hello world. So how do we work with Actix-Web? So we start with the very basics of Actix-Web. Actix. I don't even know how to pronounce it, but yeah, we will still go out with it. So what I'll do is I will need to install all the packages that I need. So cd into web apps, cd into Cypher apps, and then cargo add Actix, right? Web. So this is the name of it. It's going to install them, and then if I check my cargo.toml, we have it here. And then the other thing we also need is that we may also need Serde to help us with our serialization. So we have the Serde here, and then yeah, so these are the two main stuff that we will need. So let's start with it. I'll go back again to my main location here. So this is our main app. In Rust we always need a main entry point, just like in Go. So I'll need to import the libraries that I need. Import the libraries by the packages to use my Actix-Web. And then I need to import some stuff. So I need to import my middleware for the logger, and then some of the stuff, so web, and then app, and then HTTP request, and then we need a responder, right? We need a request, and then we need one to be able to respond. So we can call it as HTTP response, and then responder, right? So these are the stuff that we need here. And once we have imported this wonderful stuff, we will start creating our first endpoint, right, for our work. So let's see how to do that. So you just go back again. Instead of this one that we had, I'm going to take off this, and I'm going to call it as my async fn then main, and this one will take in a result, and this result, so we need to import result also. And as we already know, so in Rust, result is just like an enum that returns the value or an error, right? So it's going to be this option here. It returns a value or an error. So the error is coming from my standard IO, in case you're trying to open it, error, right? That is it. So this is an async stuff. Let's save it, and then we can now create some logs, right? So this is the basic option here. So I can just go back to call the HTTP. So HTTP server, I need to import this from here also. HTTP server new, and then with the new, I will just give it something like a lambda. I'll specify that, okay, I want to create an app instance constructor, and then this will take in my, in case you have a logger, I will just specify it, but now I don't have a logger, so I'll just go back with this option here. So we have my new app, and in case I have a route, I'll specify the route. Yeah. And then let's bind this. So I'll bind this. Before we get the route, let's bind it to a port. And specify the port. So the port is 127.0.0.1, and then we have 8000, right? then we can just say run, then .await. So it is always better to do this option so that it looks nice. Right. But as I said, we need a route, right? So let's create our first HTTP endpoint. So let's see. I would want to close anyone that was running. I'll first create my first HTTP endpoint, which is going to be mine. To create an endpoint, so async fn, then let's go to this homepage. It's going to be our first homepage, which takes in an HTTP request. And we need to implement a responder because we just want to return, and we can just give it like say name, the request dot match info. Then we need to get something, so let's call this one as my name dot unwrap. As you already know, unwrap all means that if we don't find it, we just then I can just give a format, right? So this is what is going to be returned. So hello rustaceans, and then I'll pass in my name. So this is a reference. So this is a simple endpoint we have created, and then we want to use. So how do we use this endpoint? How do we show this one? So to show, we just go back to here, and then we just go with the route. Then once you specify the route, you're going to specify, okay, I'm specifying a route. Where is the route going, right? So this is very important. So I want you to go to the main page, and then I want to specify that, okay, this is my route. Import with, and then we need to import get, then to the page, so home page. That is it. So this is our route, and then we need to import web. So we have web here, and it's going to work perfectly well. So let's see if this works. So how do I run this? So to run it, I'll just go with my cargo run. Hopefully it's going to download everything that it needs, put everything. If everything is working, it's supposed to work, and then we can see it on this port. But this will fail. The reason this will fail is that we need a decorator, because it's a main function and this is async, right? So we need something to tell Rust that, okay, this can be run inside the same async thread or whatever process, right? It is. So now it is installing all the various things that it needs to install, and let's wait for it to work. Sometimes this can take a lot of space, right? So if I go back and I check my system, see this is the 2.4. I don't have a lot, but see that it's taking, right? So sometimes it can take a lot of space. So I'll show you another way in which you can clean up these things, right? Okay, so that it gave us an error. So it's saying that, okay, homepage function homepage request implement expected one of 7 possible tokens. Could not compile. So there is also forgot some stuff here. So Rust is very verbose, so I need to add the ActixX, so Actix-Web macro to make sure that we can be able to run it. Then let's see. Saying, okay, implement responder expected one of 7 possible tokens. So why is it giving us this option? Why is it giving us this error, right? So we have async, the function, the page, home page. We have HTTP request, which is returning a responder, but it's not capital I, it's small I, right? I think that's why it's saying that expected one of seven possible tokens, right? So let's run it again, and this seems going to work. So okay, expect reason. So why this expect reason? So now we always, anytime we are returning something here, because we remember that we said we are returning a result that is standard and then it's an error. So if that's the case, we need to return some form of error, right? So we can simply fill this with the dot here, right? I think this is one of the ways we can fix it, by specifying that, okay, here. So this is like, in case you're coming from that normal, right? And you're saying, okay, these are unused imports, but although they are unused import, you can still run it up. So let's go to our application here, and then let's open here. If everything works, we should be able to see our application, right? So perfect. So you could see that we have our first Rust. So hello Rust stations, right? Rust world, hello Rust stations, Rust world. So that means that our first app is working, and based on we looking at this interface, we have been able to build something simple, right? So this is one way. This is one way. This is what we did. We can also use this approach, right, to also work on it. So let's see the first one. We have built our first page. Now we cannot see any information inside the logs, right? There's no information here, which is not good. Like in case you're coming from Rust or coming from Python or JavaScript, there's always some log information. So let's build that feature into this so that we can see the logs. So to do that, all we need is we need to import logger, which you already have it here, and then we will need to specify some standard conditions. So if some logs, right? So if std, we want to get env, and then we want to get the var os, right? And then we want to get the Rust log, and then this is none. So if it is none, so we are getting this from the environment variables. If it's none, get the standard set one if. So first get it. If it's none, you now set the environment variables, and I'll call that's my Rust log, which takes in the Actix-Web. Let's go to info, right? So we are putting it at info log. Perfect. So that is all, but we need .env to be able to get the env. So .env, and this one goes with, so we need to also import it .ok. And then we need env logger, which you have not imported, so let's import, initialize it, right? So now let's add, so let's stop. I'm going to stop it, and then I can add it with this. So it's going to be my cargo add env logger, and it's going to add env logger to it. So if I go back to my cargo crate, so I have my Serde env logger, so we can log it out. And then we can now come back to my app. Inside my new app, I want to wrap it. So let's go with wrap. Logger goes default. I always prefer it to be this way, right? Yeah, like this is nice. So now we have a logger that is going to be using the environment variable that we have to show us the logs, right? In case there are no logs. So now let's go back again, and then let's run this, If everything is working, we are going to see some logs. That application is started working. Okay, so that's finished. So let's see. Yeah, so it's failed. So it said that the use of undeclared create or .env. So anytime there is an undeclared create, you have to either add it or import it from top. Right, so we need to import env. This we need to import it because it's not imported. So use this. So we have it so that we can use it. And then yeah, so these are the main ones that we have, right? So we need to install this, which we have done. Event logger. So let's run it again. We still don't have it, so let's add .env to the scope. And then you have .env, and then if I go back here, we should be able to see that it's working. Yeah, perfect. So now it's working. This is the old one that you're supposed to build to. So if I refresh, perfect. So it's working. Let's see if we still get some logs. Yeah, okay, so hopefully this is working as expected. Okay. Now let's see how to build some other. So this one we are building a route in which we specify the route here, right? We also want to build another route. So this is one way. The other way we can also build a route is, as we saw inside the workflow, we can build a route using this approach. So we use the responder like this, right? Which is good. We can also build another app. So let's go to async function about page, then I'll pass in request, then HTTP request, then this goes with, we can go without passing this request into work. This will go implement responder, can be HTTP. Then I'll say, okay, I want to return some stuff, right? So how do I return a page, right? How do I return HTML page, right? So this is normal way. We are just returning this, which you could see from here, right? But in case I want to return a page, HTML, how do I do that? So that is where we use Tera, right? So to use Tera, let's see if there's something on Tera inside here. There is nothing like Tera here, right? So there's Serde, which we saw, but there is nothing like Tera for templating. So how do we do that? So first, I'll just go back here to my app and I'll close it. And then I'll just go with my cargo, add Tera, and there is also cargo watch, right? Because we are still loading it up and down. Anytime we have to stop and restart, but we don't want to do that. So we can use cargo watch to automatically reload our application, right? And then if I go back here, so we have Tera added, cargo watch, and then there's Tera. And because of that, from now I can just do cargo watch /s run, and then if I run this, now we can automatically run our application, and then anytime you make changes, it automatically run it and then uses cargo, right? So this is it. So it automatically runs, so we don't need to be stopping and starting over and again. So let's see how to work with Tera. So I'll go back again to creating something to store the information that we need, and we do that by using lazy static. So I'll go back here, templating, right? So templating, we are using lazy static. So the idea behind lazy static is that anytime we load any static files, or any static variables, it loads it first, so that anytime we precompile, I don't need to do it over and over and again, right? Which is very useful and saves a lot of time. So lazy static is useful in case you have constants that are static, and then you want to be using over and over again, but you don't want to automatically, like all the time, Tera. So I need to import Tera, so you use Tera. Right. Tera is like ginger, so now I'll go with my Tera, and this is going to be the location of it. So let my source, where this be equal to my template, and I want to do wildcard for that, anything inside the location, and then let Tera be equal to Tera. We have to create an instance of it, which is source, and then unwrap means it's possible to accept an error, and then we're going to return Tera. So this is what to be using, but we don't have a lazy static, right? And from now on, in case you want to use any HTML, we put in HTML inside this particular file, and then we call this one to render. So let's create it here. So inside my source directory, not here, inside my web application source directory, I'm going to create a directory here called templates. Then inside templates, I will pass in my index.html, and then let's call base.html, right? And then here I can now just put something like this, HTML5, so let's put something simple, hello Tera. What you want to see, if this can be rendered. Now I'll go back here. You see that because I'm using the cargo watch, so anytime I make a change, it automatically compile and then runs. It gives us the error, so we need to fix the error there. So the errors we are getting is we don't have lazy static. So I'll open another tab. Let's open another tab, which is here. Then we go with cd into my web apps, cipher, cargo, lazy static. We need to add this pivot so that we can use it. So use lazy static, import lazy static, so we can use lazy static, and we already have Tera already installed. So if I check my cargo, we have my lazy static Tera, and then I will go back here. Then instead of the responder having nothing, the responder does not have anything. Now we can, how do we work with it? So just like in Django, we just go mutable context, right? Then this mutable context is going to take in my Tera context, and then this will be new instance, which is empty like a dictionary. and then we will now insert my data there. This is how we do it. It takes in a key, so let's call it, let's say, name, and then the value, we just call, let's say, Rust Cipher app, right? Something like that. Or let's call this about page, right? Perfect. And then how do we use it? So I'll just go with match templates.render. Then so this is like, as you remember that with match is like switch, right? Or if let if switch matching a pattern. So we are going to be matching a pattern, look through our templates that we have, and then search for anything called, let's create one for about page. So I'll copy this. Let's go to about.html. I'll pass it here. I'll call this about page. Then we want to call this about.html page, and this about.html page must take in some context, so the value that we have there. And since you are matching it, we're going to say, okay, if there is a match, then okay, then create a variable called page, and then return this HTTP response, okay, and then dot body, now passing my page, right? If there is a match. Otherwise, if there is no match, just get an error and then return the error message. So HTTP response dot internal server error, so internal server error. Then dot body, pass in the format the image. So you not format the error. We can now say, okay, so error rendering templates. Then we will specify the particular error. So this is a patch and match, right? So we are saying that, okay, create an about page. This is going to be our context that we want to pass to the page. If there's a match for this page, pass in the values if everything is okay. If there is an error, tell me that there's an error and specify that particular error. So inside my about page, I need to specify this variable called name. So I'll go back here, and then how do we do that? We can go with my p tag, and this is like Ginger, right? So in case you are coming from Flask or Node.js, we have something like Ginger, the mustache syntax. Then I'll pass in the name here. If I run it and then I go back here, so let's save it. How do I use this route? I'll go back here, and then I can specify dot route about page, and this about page taking a web, and this is a get method that is to my about page. If I save it, and then let's switch to the cargo. So it is running. Hopefully there's no error. Let's see. So let's go back again. So if I refresh, so if there's an error, we should see that there's an error. So let's go back to our terminal. So I cannot find value templates in the scope, right? So it cannot find this templates. So let's see, templates. So we have to ensure that templates is available in the scope. So where is it? We have templates. So static public ref Tera, let's go to this. The source, we specify the source. Then we specify that, okay, get this value and then return this. Okay, perfect. So it's working. We forgot to close it. reload. So that's this works. And then let's see the about page. Yeah, we see that the about page is also working. Hello Tera, you see about page, right? So this was the information that we have here. So we had, yeah, so we have seen how to render using the normal format, render using the response, and using HTML template, right? So this is very important, right? So these are very, very important concepts you need to know when you are trying to work with Rust. So let's recap, because this is super useful. It's going to be the beginning of all your Flux app or Rust Actix-Web app. So what we need is, first you need to import these packages or these libraries, and then you need the lazy static, which loads your template once so that it can be used over any time. And then we have my first route. So this is going to be my route, so endpoint, and this is also another endpoint. So endpoint, this is endpoint with HTML, right, templating. And this we are using Tera, right? So this is the normal one. So the HTTP request, we are matching it for getting the name and we are returning there. But for this, we have a context we have created using Tera. We are inserting some data into the page, and then we are matching our template directory. If we found this about page, we send those data there, otherwise return an error message. And then inside our main app, we are creating a virtual an env to set the logs, and then we're initializing it. This is, we can omit this, but it's useful. And then we have your main server, right? So HTTP server, we create a new instance, a constructor instance, then we create a new app, we wrap the logger, we specify the route, and this is the route endpoint, and then we bind it, right? So this is one way. Now let's see, we have seen how to send data from the backend to the front end. How do you get data from the backend, from the front end to the backend, right? So how do you work with form data? So I'll go back again to here, and then we'll create another endpoint, so async. I'm going to say that this one, so first we have the home page. Now let's create one called the index page, right, where we want to get some information. So how do we do that? We want to receive data from the user and then return that data back, right? So there are several ways we can do that. So the simplest way is that first, let's create an index page. We can go without a request, and then we need to implement a response, a function endpoint, and just as we did, we will just repeat the same stuff here because this is used constantly. You can simplify the same way as a function, so I don't need to repeat it all the time. And then what we want to do is, this is going to be the main page, right? So let's go to this home page, right? And this will be my index page, and I would want to return some information, right? So let's go back again to the index page. We have it here. So if I save it, how do I show this page? I can come down here and still do the same route as we did. Right. So I'll change this to home page, and I'll change this to just the index, right? Index and home page are always the same, but let's keep it like this way. Now let's go back here. So we have the about page. So let's see if there's any error. Do we have an error? Okay, this one. So the reason is feeling that the sender expected an item, right? So this is not just async, it's async function. let me position it side by side because we want to make it interactive and nice. This is me learning Rust. Okay, so let's save it. So it's saying something, right? It's saying that in this, okay, I see. It's not supposed to be response, it's supposed to be responder. You have to always read the errors. So perfect, now it's working. If I go back to the default page, so we have the home page, so that means it's working. Perfect. So how do we receive information from the front end to the back end, right? That is the main idea. So we would want to use a form to receive that. So this is all that we need, but we want to receive something from the front end here. So what I want to do is that let's use Bootstrap. Well, first let's go straight away with our Bootstrap, and then let's receive the form. So I'll go back here, and if you recall, we had this option here, right? So we have this type of approach. So this approach is good. You define a function, it's there that implements a responder, then you pass it through the route. You define it here. There is also another way using the service-based approach in which you're going to go back with this option. So you define here using the macros or macros. Is this macros or decorators? Something like that. I think this is like decorators, right? Yeah, I think I'll call it decorators. And I want to do the same thing, so post. So the same approach here that we have. We can define what we want like this. So I want to, let's say we want to generate something, right? And then this will take in my async function, and I'll call it as say or let's call it as page, something like that, generate page. And this generate page needs to take in some data, right? Because we want to return implement responder, and then we want to return some information. So we will do the same thing here because we want to do some calculation. What we want to do is that we want to receive something from the form, right? So we will change this inside this index. We want to put in some form data. So how is the form data going to be? So we will have to specify a struct. So let's go to as my struct, and I'll call it as my, let's say, form data, right? And this struct will take in, let's say, raw test. That is all. And this raw test is going to be a string. So it can be a string, or we can call it as a normal string, right? Perfect. So something like this. And then let's say the number, right? Because we want to generate a password. So it's going to be, so I32, right? These are form data. That's what we want to receive data. Now to use it, we'll just go with passing that same form data into our form. So it's going to be form web right? And then we will just pass in the form, the bracket, my form data. So this is one way. So now we can receive forms from that. So reflex, this is not used. So since it's not, we need to use it. So to use it, we can just say let my form data be equal to the form dot into inner. So the into inner gets that data, right? And now we can use that form. So first I'll go back here and I need to create a HR line, then div, let's class container, then we will pass in a form, and then inside this form we will pass in, let's say, an input, or let's say, yeah, input type. Let's go to test, then the name is going to be my raw test. So this name raw test here should match to this. It's referring to this one here that will be inside the form, right? Because that's what we want to use to receive the data. So the data will be bound to that. And then we can say, we can paste in a placeholder. So say test. Then we close this. Then we need another one, input type number. Then the name is going to be num. And then placeholder, password length, right? Then we will just pass in a button to submit. So type submit. So this is our form. So if I refresh this page, we should see this form, right? And then in order for us to use it, I need to push this form somewhere. So the method is going to be post, and then the action is going to be the route I want to push this, which is going to be generate. So I'm going to be pushing that data from here to this generate endpoint, and this generate endpoint is referring to this one here, right? And how do I use it? So I can now come back here and say let my raw test code form data dot raw test, and then let number be equal to form data dot number. And then in case I want to send that data, I can send it like contest dot insert. So let's call it as, let's say, raw test. First, let's send the raw test first, and I'll pass in the raw test, right? To pass it, let's convert it to reference it, right? We are referencing that particular value, and then we want to show this one here. So to show that information here, I can just say something like this. So 2, just to show it. So raw test. If I save it, this will fail. So let's refresh. The reason this will fail is that let's check the error. Seeing that some value is not used, so it's not used. And then this post, consider importing this attribute macro. So it's a macro, right? So it's not a decorator. So this is using macros. Yeah, we can call it decorators, but yeah, I think it's a decorator. Decorator macro, yeah. Meta programming. Okay, so now I need to import post so that I can use the post macro, and it's gone. And then we have the number which is not being used, but we can hide it with this option here, and then we don't need it again, it's hidden. And let's go back and refresh. So let's see if there's any error. Okay, so it's saying that, let's see. So we have this, yeah, we are not using it, so let's use it. Right, so that's why we are not seeing anything. So I'll come back here to use it. I'll just go back here and call, instead of route, I'll call it a service, and I'll pass in the generate page. Now we have it being used somewhere, so required by resource. Yeah, so why is it giving us so the trait for the serialize is not implemented for form data, so that means that we need to deserialize it. So we can just use Serde. Serde means serializer, deserializer, and then this sticks in my serializer, or say deserialize. And then I will have to decorate this with decorate the form. Right, but for this to work, right, if I refresh it to appear that it's working, so the serialize, I have to close it here because I'm important. Now it seems everything is working, right? So let's refresh it again. So it's running, and now, so error relatively failed to render index.html. So why did it fail? So one of the ways that most of the time it will fail is that it's using this one, right? Inside this context, we have just name. But inside the same context which is being used on the same endpoint, the same template, we also have raw test. So it is missing. So the simplest way you can do is that you can just come back here. In case you have a better approach, you can let me know, because I'm still learning. So insect. Then I'll go with my raw test. And then I'll just pass in an empty stuff here. So that if it's not there, it's going to run. And then let's refresh it again. If it's empty, it's going to return the empty one. Yeah, so that's the simplest solution, right? So now we have my test here. I can paste in hello, paste in some number, submit, and then you see that we have the hello here. So this is how to receive input from the front end and then send it back to the backend, which is a very important concept when you're trying to learn any application. So you have seen how to send input from the backend to the front end using Tera and then using the templating. We have seen how to receive input from the front end to the back end, right? You saw another important. Now that is how most applications work. Getting input from the front end to the back end and back end to the front end. The rest is now all the logic that you know, right? So let's create a simple function to pick the value. So now with this stuff that we have, right, we can simply do something like this. So we have this raw test here, which is the raw test. I can now do something like this. This is a string. I can do to upper case, and then if I save it, everything works. If I run hello, right, this, and if I run it, if everything works, it's supposed to come up as a bigger one. So let's refresh. So cannot pass integer from empty string. So okay, yeah, because this is empty now, right? So let's go back here. 5. Yeah, see that now it's working. So we have the bigger one. So you can do any application that you want now. So that is the basic overview of trying to work with Actix-Web Actix-Web. I don't know how to pronounce it. Now let's add a simple feature to add password generation to our application to make it a little bit nice, right? We just want to pass a password generator to it. So how do you create a simple password generator? We'll be doing that in the next tutorial. So see you in the next session. Stay blessed. Bye. Yeah, no, let's do it now. So we have some stuff there. So I'll go back again to here. Let's do it here. And I'm going to create a simple function. And I'm going to just generate pass function, and it takes in a test, and then this type of test is going to take will be a string. Then I want to pass in the password length, which is going to be unsigned integer. It can be a signed integer or unsigned integer, but let's keep it as a unsigned integer 32, and this will return a string, right? Because we want to randomly generate password. Then we will use range. So we have let mut range, which is going to be a random integer, not rand. So from thread. So we are using a language, a package called random, right? Rand, which is similar to random in Python, to automatically generate one, and we need to create a thread. Then let the random string that you want to create be a string that is going to be, you're going to pick from 0 to the password length that we have. Then we will use map, right? So map, and then this is similar to lambda functions or map reduce, right? So I'll pass it here inside this two pipes, similar to lambda in case you're coming from Python. Then range.sample, this, what does this do? So this is going to sample out from some value that we have. So let's call this alpha numeric, which we will import later, and then as character. Then once we do that, we want to collect all of them. So it's going to pick values automatically, random values, just sample from them. And then once we get those values, we will now format it, right? So let's say let result be equal to the format. Then now I want to pass in those values. So we have the test that the person supplied to lowercase. I want to get everything into lowercase. Then I want to pass in my random string together, and then I can now return results, right? So this rand is not important, so you have to switch. And then I'll import it. So let's switch to PowerShell. So cargo add rand, and then you also need to add random for the alphanumeric, right, distribution. So we need a random distribution to be able to work with the alphanumeric, and then from there I can just go with use rand. Then we'll be using random to help us with this, otherwise we cannot work, right? So what we are doing is that we want to import the thread random, and then if you're going to be using it, and then we need to use random distribution, which takes in the alphanumeric values. So alphanumeric, yeah, perfect. You can import it without this, right? You can actually do this, it will still work anyway, right? Important it just to use it, or you can just put it into bracket. Now let's switch. Hopefully everything is working. So once the user sent in a test, we want to create a password. So let result be equal to generate pass, then I'll pass in the raw test, which in this case now is a string, right? Slice, and then I'll pass in my number, which is going to be the number here. So this number is no more this, and we're going to get our test. Then we will now want to send it here, so let's pass it as Then we need to do the same here so that it doesn't break. So there's nothing, right? So if I refresh it, we are having an error here. So what does the error says? Says that it expected U38, but we got integer 32. So that is integer unsigned. So what I would do is, let's change it from unsigned to signed. Yep. And then it works. And it's saying, okay, this is unused. We don't care. We care, but not now. So let's check again. Stay in the other arrow. Okay, we forgot this return result, so we need to return it here. Not here, rather here. We don't need it here. Now it's working. Perfect. So now if I say hello, I pass in 34, we get hello, right? But we do not get the result test because we do not add it. So I'll go back here, and then we have the original test, and then we have the resultant test. So let's try again. Go back here, refresh. Perfect. So we have our generate password, right, which is very cool, right? So you have seen how to build a very simple application using Rust, right, and then Tera, and then Actix. Now, in case you have multiple pages and you want to use Base.html, you can also do the same thing. You can add so many features to it. You can add Bootstrap to make it beautiful. Let's see an example. So in case I want to add Bootstrap to make this beautiful, I can just go back here, and then we can first go to, this is our about page. So these are all repetitions, but I can make it simple by picking this one. So I'll just pick everything from here to my base.html, and then do the same, pick everything below to my base.html, and then I'll be using this one inside the application. So to work with the base.html, all you need is, we will need something like this, right? So I'm using from Bootstrap. I just copied this one, which is down here, and this one, which is on top here. Yeah, and I created this navbar with the generator page, right, something like that. And then yeah, we had this here, so everything will be inside this particular option here. Now inside my HTML, I can now extend it, so we can just do the same thing we used to do in Flux or in Ginger, right? So whatever we used to do there, we can do the same thing. All we need is, we need to extend. So we can just go back here and say extend base.html. So we're just going to extend from here, and then we are now going to call this end block, right? Remember that there's end block, so that it closes the content. And now if I refresh, there you're going to see that we have the Bootstrap there, right, which is very cool, right? So the Bootstrap has been added to application. Very cool, right? And then we can now add any modification that we want. Of course, we can do many things to make it useful, but that is one way we can use Tera. So everything that we know in Ginger still stays the same, right? Because Tera is similar to Ginger. There is also mini Ginger in case you want to use it by just extending, and then you can use it in all the different applications. So to recap, we have seen how to build a simple application in Rust using Actix-Web. So all you need is to import your packages and the stuff that you need. You work with the lazy static with the Tera templating, similar to Ginger. You create your function to do whatever processing you want to do. You specify your endpoint simply, or an endpoint with templating with HTML, and then same thing here. Or you can also create an endpoint that takes in a form data, which is like a struct, and then you pass in that data here to your function. You process it, you send it back to your front end, and then you run your server using this particular approach. So thank you for watching this tutorial. In case you have any question or contribution, you can put it in the comments below, and then see you another time. Stay